Welcome back. Welcome back. We're live again. And in continuation from Strata's previous presentation, we talked a little bit about what it means to enter from a non technical realm into any permutation of the AI industry's emerging job market trends. So we're going to take a different route now with Honey. Honey, we're going to be talking about research for social good. It's funny. We talked about the technical aspects of semantic layers and all those things. Then we talked about career planning and being proactive and entering through different creative roles. And now we're going to talk about research. Usually it's academia to industry, but we're doing it backwards now.
Yeah.
So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to share your screen and I'm excited to hear what you have to share. You're always doing interesting things in agriculture, disease vectors. What do you call it? Epidemiology.
Yeah, it's a part of digital health, the broad concepts of digital health and agriculture and customer centric industries. So yeah.
Energy sectors. You've done a
Yes.
lot of different and interesting projects across very important social sectors. So
Yeah. Thank you so much for the warm welcome and welcome to all. Good afternoon and good evening from the UK. And we are having a very hot weather here presently. So, my name is Dr. Hani Yadav. I'm presently pursuing my postdoctoral at Smart C Plus project, where we are understanding how sustainable energy and solar based energy transitions could be scalable for farmers back in Bangladesh. And we are in this project we are developing digital solutions, predictive maintenance, where the AI is the core part. We are also aiming to develop decision support tools for the farmers to understand more about entrepreneurship, to understand more about how to increase their income. And we are trying to equip AI that is much more valuable towards the farmers and that increase the that increase the capacity at a more social level. So today in my presentation, I would like to discuss very, the how the industry has been moving ahead and what are the critical aspects of AI where the research gaps are lying and how we can together, because having said before in numerous of my sessions, uh, my perception of AI is that it is a very general purpose technology. A little bit about myself first. As I introduced that I'm a postdoctoral research fellow. My PhD was to understand AI capabilities in small and medium enterprises. And so I'm a mixed method researcher. I have written primary cases. I have very worked very closely when trying to understand AI technology with industries like healthcare, specifically mental health institutes. I have worked with tech industries. I have worked with market research companies. I have worked with a lot of skincare companies as well. And presently as well, I'm involved in various aspects of social health and agriculture and energy system. So it's a lot of mixed method sectors that we are looking at. At the same point of time, the idea has always been the same into my research. That first is technology impact assessment and technology policy framing, because the technology sector, as independent it is evolving as a very fast pace. And so the sectoral application and the productize of such technologies are specifically overlooked, and there is a huge gap, how we implement these technological solution to applicable sectors, how we generate social goods, and how we put it into an ethical framework, and how we also make it compliable towards the regulations that we have to follow. So a little bit about myself, which is given here in a brief summary, and you can also find details onto my LinkedIn profile. All the projects that I have done are pretty active on my LinkedIn profile. So, in the today's presentation, we are going to specifically look at the aspects of technology where there are a lot of research gaps and there are a lot of requirement from a socio-technical perspective to come along. And even the research community is looking to actually collaborate with industry because of the nature of the technology. So, because AI is again is a very applied technology, and in isolation, the value generation is really a challenging task. And to productize AI into something that gives value towards your customers or users, that is something a question for many organizations. And that is a conundrum that a lot of organizations are facing, that how to actually overcome that question of producing value from AI. So we know that the overall process of AI goal setting and the system development is very sequential, and it is also very recurrent in nature. So we know that the basic pipeline of intelligent systems begin with actually training these systems on specific testing and training data sets, and then validating them, and then performing thorough investigation on model evaluation and model performance. And then subsequently, now because of AI governance and because of regulations, companies have also realized the importance of explainability and interpretation. And now companies have also started building using frameworks like NIST, and a lot of AI governance frameworks are also emerging from the research community. Having said that, there are a lot of sectoral differentiation, that every sector needs to have their own level of explainability or own specific customization of AI governance. So for example, if we compare the critical sectors like mental health institutes, financial institutes, and if we compare to the manufacturing or skincare sector, then there is a huge difference between the kind of vulnerabilities and risk these organizations are worried about, and these organizations are testing these models thoroughly. So, with the technology become very applicable and true to its potential, at the simultaneous point, organizations are also now understanding the critical need of AI governance and the responsible AI pillars. And then one is the aspect of model deployment, when the whole ecosystem or whole the advanced models are trained and they are ready to deploy, and then they are prepared to actually put into the production. And then we goes to the monitoring and the maintenance part. So the whole ecosystem and cycle of AI is very recurrent in nature. So many of the time you have to actually go from one stage to other. More of the time you have to check the other stage. You have to Many of the time you have to perform some test sample data sets using exploratory data analysis. And that's a very crucial aspect of technology, that it's not something which does not need monitoring. It is something which requires thorough monitoring and thorough customization as we proceed. Recently we saw a lot of cases where, for example, Instacart, we are seeing a lot of pricing algorithms that are coming under scrutiny because of the fact that these algorithms are not able to more of like explain towards that why they are actually putting forward the pricing for different customers maybe. Or we are seeing cases where after the deployment, the organizations are realizing the vulnerabilities and risk more often as compared when they were testing these systems. So these are some of the new challenges that we are actually coming across. And that's also one very particular aspect of that why these challenges are coming, is because of the fact the multidisciplinary nature of this technology. So as a researchers, we know that from the technical point of perspective, AI has been investigated from computer science experts, from core technical experts. From the policy perspective, this technology has been understood in various lenses. Then it comes from the socio-technical perspective. From sociologist, the technology comes up with a different perspective, and economist as well comes up with a different perspective. So because of such a multidisciplinary aspect and nature of this technology, it is very complex collaborative ecosystem that we are actually starting to build. And we now we are now very sure that this technology is going to remain with us, because industries are really pivoting these AI solutions and these AI model development into their a lot of business processes. So making sure that this technology is going to be with us is one aspect, and the other aspect is now uh, we need to also make sure that these systems are thoroughly researched, and which actually requires a lot of multidisciplinary collaboration happening, because this is a technology which is involving as a technical components, as energy components, as organizational components, as policy components, and also it how it is going to actually change the whole dynamics and the culture within the organization is something that we are also, as a research community, we are also looking to understand furthermore. Hence it's a very complex system which requires a different expertise to come together and to solve one particular problem, or to actually understand these systems from a different lens, but towards a one specific goal, that what is the value addition are we getting from this technology, what is the ultimate goal that we are actually trying to achieve when we are using this technology. Is the goal is to increase the efficiency of human, or is the goal is to just purely automate and reduce to the minimum aspect of the human intervention. So these are the very upfront questions that we are actually asking in the organizations when we are developing these systems. And this also create a lot of clarity that what are the tests and what are the assessment and audit framework that we need to design, because we have some standard frameworks for assessment. For example, NIST, which is widely accepted. We have some ISO standards, we have some OECD guidelines. We know that EUAI Act is very particular and it is going to be active from August 2026. So there are different categories of frameworks. There are regulations that organizations are bound to follow. Then there are voluntary tools like NIST, ISO standards that many organizations are choosing to deploy to actually build these ecosystem very responsibly. And then we have some guidelines that are given by United Nations or by OECD, so that the development of this technology is happening into the overall welfare of the human growth and the overall welfare of the society. But there are some niche areas where I believe that research is more required, and we need more interdisciplinary expertise to combine and join together their understanding of this technology. For example, we have seen that there are a lot of research which is being done on the pre-development part of the AI system. So the how the training data sets are evolved, what are the different kind of models that we could have, what are the different kind of data sets that we could have, what kind of algorithm that we need to design. So there is a lot of there is a lot of pre-development stage which is more heavily investigated in these systems. But if we talk about the deployment part, and that's where the more complexity begins, because if we talk about concepts like the data drift or the concept drift or the vulnerabilities that comes, most of these vulnerabilities are identified when these AI systems are deployed and they are actually interacting with the real time data sets. And that's where which is one of the very crucial area which requires a lot of research. And one gap is also because we do not have many systems that are into deployment stage, and that is also one particular system that we do not have enough research to understand that how this technology actually evolves when it comes to actual interaction with socio-technical systems. So, but having said that, it is also very important to actually increase the dimension of research to more post-deployment stages of AI, that how the monitoring aspects could be improved. So recently, we were actually having this conversation with the head of data regulations at NHS. And she suggested that how NHS is pivoting AI application, how NHS, the healthcare sector in the UK, is actually adopting a lot of AI solutions. But there is a huge lack of research to understand that how these systems are actually going to interact with the patients. What are the vulnerabilities that they have to preemptively focus upon, or they have to alert within themselves, or they have to look upon, because it's a very new technology. Then that is the leap of faith that a lot of organizations are taking, and that's where also as a researcher we need to deploy more attention, that these are the areas where more investigation is required. And as we discussed, that why this matters is because when it comes to vulnerabilities, and when it comes to something, these system, when they started interacting with their customers, and some foreseeable risk or some foreseeable vulnerabilities that happens, it harms the relationship between the customers or the users and the organization. So for example, if we look at the case of Instacart, that's something that happened in the US, that how the pricing algorithm was not able to be explained by the organization, that why the different customers are were actually treated differently. That also impact the customer relationship between the organization and the brand equity that for so long maybe the organization have worked upon to build. And that is also one reason that critical sectors, when they are interacting with their patients, or when they're healthcare or financial sectors, these are the sectors that their interaction with the customers is heavily dependent upon the trust for so long they have built with their customers. And for they so that also requires a thorough investigation, because it is going to hurt the trust that they have built with the organization and with their customers. So there is a evaluation. Another gap which also has been highlighted in many of the recent studies is the evaluation gap. So how do we evaluate a lot of frameworks that are there? And there is a active research area which is working upon the technical metrics that are required to actually evaluate the LLM outcome, or if you have built up a RAG ecosystem, that how are you able to evaluate your RAG outcomes, or how are you able to actually optimize your chatbots. But I believe that a lot of research has also highlighted that how the evaluation is not only about the metrics that from the technical perspective that we need. For example, is it only about the accuracy, or is it only about the class imbalance problem that we are looking upon? But it is also about the evaluation that is being done from multi social perspective. So, for example, if we are deploying a chatbot for patients in the healthcare sector, then how are we evaluating those responses? Are we also considering the domain expertise into the evaluation metrics? The metrics that we have decided, how is it going to actually define between the relationship for the patients and the healthcare ecosystem? So the evaluation gap has also been for so long morely concentrated around that how the performance of the core systems, but it has to be evaluated from other aspects as well, from other domain expertise and domain requirement as well. Because when we are talking about farmers, so where we had the discussion, and we were actually thinking, and a lot of research is also happening around that how the decision support tools that are optimized and equipped with AI could assist farmers to actually increase their income, or to actually more make more sensible farming decisions. But at the same point of time, we have to understand that if there are these systems at any particular instance could or if they or if they just propose something which is not valuable, or there is a hallucination that has happened, and if it actually is suggesting something to farmer, then there is a huge cost that is involved, because these are the farmers that we are talking about. They are very price sensitive farmers. They are very economically, they are very sensitive farmers. So these are some of the questions that comes across when these systems are deployed for the front end sectoral needs, or the for the front end users and customers needs. So there is a evaluation gap that also we need to address, and we need to work more collaboratively for an ecosystem of AI, to understand that how are we going to evaluate a system, what are the metrics, what are the KPIs that we are going to consider for evaluation. Are we only going to focus upon the performance of these systems, or we are also considered, or we are also monitoring that how the systems are performing with the customer centric KPIs, that how these some what are the some of the KPIs that are more risk averse, and what are some of the high flagged KPIs that we need to monitor constantly when these systems are continuously interacting with the customers or the users. Second is definitely the human AI collaboration measurement. So again, the example of NHS, that healthcare is very susceptible to human interventions, and it is something which is definitely required, that human has to be in the loop when we are talking about a lot of applications of AI happening in the healthcare. But there is also one question, that where actually we are going to have human in the loop, and what is the frequency of human intervention that we require in these systems. Is Are we looking at something that, so there was an interesting concept that was discussed when we were actually having the conversation with NHS, that there is a concept of human in the loop, but now we are also seeing a demand of human on the loop. So which means that yes, the system is going to be audited, the system outcome is going to be audited by the human which is present there, who is there, but who is going to audit the response of that human, that that particular instance they have put considerable effort to actually understand the system outcome. So there is an active conversation around why human in the loop is very much essential. But again, it is very contextual to see that what is the level of human interaction, what how much sensitive the business processes are when we are talking about AI application, and what is the intensity that we need to have. Maybe for healthcare, the intensity of human in the loop is much higher as compared to the manufacturing interaction of AI. So that is something, that human in the collaboration measurement is also one area where a lot of research is happening, but we need more contribution towards understanding that what is the intensity for each business processes or for sectors that we are actually hoping these implementation for. And then we have the bias conception narrowness. So most AI bias research conceptualize bias as the technical problem, and that may be identified and mitigated through algorithmic intervention. So basically, we see upon the data imbalance, the statistical discrimination, the fairness metrics, the model optimization. But this is also one thing where the biases has to be investigated thoroughly, from not only from the data perspective, maybe the data, the technical metrics of biases and the definition of biases are very different as compared to what the data may possess coming from a particular background. So the biases is very much contextual in nature. So maybe the biases that will happen in Indian digital ecosystem of, let's say, edtech companies is very much different from the biases that can be investigated from any other comparable economy. Hence, these are very contextual biases narratives, and these are some things that biases has to be further dissected to understand the socio-economic perspective. That what are the socio-economic perspective of the biases, and how are we going to investigate further? What are the measurements? Maybe bias management is something that we need to incorporate within our governance and within our organization policies before actually proceeding to implement AI systems, or actually building AI solutions, or proposing new product development around AI. So biases conception and the narrowness, the understanding of biases, not from the core technical perspective. Yes, it requires technical dimensions to be investigated into the highly technical domain, but at the same point of time, the understanding of biases requires more from the sociology, from the ethics, from the policy, and from the organizational studies perspective, that how the biases could be contextualized in different sectors and application of these systems. So, for a quick presentation and for a quick understanding, there are some. These are some of the future research and agendas that, as a researcher, uh, we have been understanding, and we want more collaborative industry efforts, and we need more research to come along on this on these dimensions of the AI, because a lot of what the processes that are happening right now are more inspired by what has already happened, and then it is just the incremental research that we are seeing. But I believe that we need new ideas, new understanding of these systems, maybe understanding from different domain experts, so that these systems could be put under scrutiny before actually putting it upfront for the value addition, to understand that how what are the good, what are the value addition that we are actually seeing from these systems, and what are the some of the risk and vulnerabilities that we need to assess, and we need to actually put it into our policies and preemptive measures, so that we are not creating systems that, or we are not creating a situation where it impact the organization goodwill or the brand equity, or how it is actually how the patients and users are foreseeing the organization in altogether. So these are some of the future agendas that I would like to propose, that we have been trying to investigate, and that is very much timely to actually diversify the research that we are seeing. So thank you so much for having me for this quick presentation, and I'm open to research and collaborations, and trying to understand different perspective on this particular idea. Thank you.
Thank you, honey. This is quite a big area. I mean, for one thing, the adoption of these technologies have exploded so many different subsets of concerns of risks. I mean, you mentioned social dimensions, technical
Yeah,
dimensions. There's a lack of trained hands and
yeah,
knowledgeable practitioners to meet the demand of how quickly this is expanding. And, one thing is just to create it, another thing is to ensure that it's up to snuff with maintenance, with
yeah,
regulatory compliance, with evals, right? Is this going to cause unintended harm? Is the data clean, accurate, and
yeah,
within the functional use case of the specifications, or is it drifting into a different kind of mode, and
yeah.
so many different areas? Thank you for that. I want to ask you, how do you see the profession itself of research, of academic research and presentations, how is that shifting as a consequence of AI now making research, data collection, synthesis more wildly available?
Yeah. That's a very good question. And I believe this is a change that we are going to see in the future, coming era of automation. That, now the boundaries between the disciplines that, researcher have so long worked upon. So, for example, there were economic researchers who were just studying the economics, and there were then data science researchers, then there were then social researchers, and, industry researchers. I believe that with the more automation and the more digital environments that we are going to build and we are going to see in our coming era, we are going to transcend these boundaries, and we are going to actually merge a lot of boundaries altogether. So as you said that, that the data drift and the data cleaning and the pre-exploratory analysis that is required, it also comes up to the question that who is actually performing the data cleaning, how the perception of bias is put together from a data analyst who may not have worked into the domain of that particular sector. Then how that person is going to understand the bias altogether, that what is something that the data needs to be corrected upon. So the boundaries of research are now actually merging, and it is the era that we are coming together, that it require a strong collaborative ecosystem between different disciplines, and that is something that we are going to see altogether. And in US, we are seeing that is already happening, that, the industry and the academia is merging them together. They are actually now they are investigating sociologists to understand AI. They are putting ethics experts into actually to learn to make AI learn ethics. So I believe that boundary is going to be more closely knitted together into the coming research era, that we will need a environment where we need different discipline researchers to come together and to understand these systems in an ecosystem.
This sounds like a non-trivial problem to overcome. Having people, even in the same organization, try to speak the same language is difficult as it is. Never mind people that come from different worlds and vocabularies and areas of expertise. How do you see this working out? Like you're seeing it on your end. How are you
Yeah.
working through some of these challenges?
I think it's already happening. Like in my project, which is a Smart SIP Plus project, the usually these projects to be very much engineering and very much electrical engineering oriented. But now these projects are now incorporating wide dimension of domain expertise. So I come from a technology management area. We have a whole team who come from social area. We have a team from business expertise. We have a team who have worked from financial entrepreneurship. So now I believe, yes, we are now pivoting into that direction where, yes, we are respecting and we are trying to understand that what is the feasible solution, including all the domain expertise input and feedback. What is the feasible solution that could be achievable? So I think it is already happening when we are designing such systems. In the present project, I'm seeing that that merging of different expertise altogether. So, with the AI becoming and with the digital environment becoming more prominent around us, I think that yes, it will be tough and it will be very slow at this space, but it is going to merge and it is going to actually combine a lot of domain expertise together.
I think we're going to be able to get into that in the following panel discussion, where we talk about
Yeah,
adopting a system thinker mindset.
yeah,
Part of that is how do you blend together all the different
yeah,
functional areas of a team or a group or an organization, because a system touches everything, right?
yeah, sure. Yeah. Looking forward to that session as well. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, honey. We'll take a brief break and we'll be right back. So, see you soon.
Perfect. Okay.